everyone. I'm sure that all of you know about the infamous OceanGate submarine incident, because when it was going on, it was all over the media, to the point that it was nearly impossible to not know about it. Whatever app you were using, you were bound to come across someone talk about this topic, but there were two sects of people in this topic. On one side, you had people actually worried about the passengers who could actually become stuck at the bottom of the ocean and die. And then on the other side, you had people making memes about it and laughing at how bizarre the situation is. Some were laughing at how ironic it was for their journey to fail, especially when the whole point was to see the Titanic, which is probably the most common metaphor for a highly anticipated journey failing. The most common defense people had when joking about it was it was kind of bound to fail, especially when you look at the people behind it. In particular, the guy leading the expedition, where it's very hard to look past his ego. That made him break a ton of rules just to make this rushed idea become a reality. And of course, everyone remembers the infamous controller part, where nobody could really defend the idea of using a cheap controller to control a sub going down to really dangerous low sea levels. But another part that made this story so well known across the world was how every second was always covered by the press, to the point that there was no breathing room with the amount of articles and information coming out non-stop. The reason why it was this popular, it was because how easy it was to report on it, where the press could basically talk about anything new they found, regardless if it was necessary or not. Compared to a decade or two ago, the news was more relaxed, because there was just no way you could always keep reporting new stuff, because it's not everything was that important. But now, with the spread of short form entertainment, people talk about the Titan sub, they didn't really have to try hard to make it seem what they were saying, and they really added anything. I think the best example of this is TikTok, where the algorithm prefers shorter clips as opposed to longer ones that might go into a bit more in depth. I think Twitter's a pretty big contributor towards this, but to be honest, that site has always been a cesspit of brain dead news ever since the beginning, so I'm not really surprised that this story was trending on there. I mean, if you go for a popular news account on Twitter, you just find a huge pile of community notes from people that actually research the topic, compared to a journalist who just rushed out an article because it was their job. Twitter was also the place where someone made an account for the sole reason of tweeting out how much hours of oxygen they had left in the sub before they would suffocate. So outside the press, there were other people reporting on this story non-stop up until the submarine imploded and the search for them stopped, because at that point they were already dead. Looking back at it now, the OceanGate Voyage really did make it seem impossible to reach the Titanic. And the reason why I say this is because there was an actual expedition planned in 2024 by a much more prepared company, but was cancelled by the US government. I should probably preface now that it has nothing to do with the original company who made the Titan sub, OceanGate, because an actual company corporation was behind this, with people who could actually plan this kind of project, which is the RMS Titanic Incorporated. As well as the fact that they actually own the rights to the salvage of the ship, which makes me feel they know the most about it. Therefore, they're the ones that could handle this the best. Compared to OceanGate, where the people behind it just wanted to do it so they could be well known for their journey, as well as being seen as brave and bold for breaking the rules that prevented them from seeing the Titanic. Which is kind of funny now in hindsight, seeing all the interviews with one of the main guys, Stockton Rush, where he clearly wanted to be seen as a rule breaker, pretending what he was doing was awe-inspiring, and everyone around him should look up to him for attempting this. But his 2024 trip was actually meant to be safer, with actually planning behind it, so the outcome wouldn't be bad. And funnily enough, it was actually organized before the OceanGate one. However, despite how much time they had between planning starting and them actually doing it, they couldn't get permission from the US government to do it, because they wanted to go and recover stuff from the ship. Because in contrast to the other voyage, this one was actually planning on salvaging any valuable parts that were still there, which is one of the main reasons why this was cancelled, since it's way easier to just go to the Titanic, just look around it. But since it's also a grave site protected by the Secretary of Commerce, you need to get actual authorization to retrieve anything from the ship, since at the end of the day 1,500 people still died on the Titanic. Therefore, the wreck still should be treated with respect, and you can't just go to someone's grave dig up the coffin. With that said, I'm making it sound like the OceanGate failure really ruined this plan, but in reality, the way it ended didn't really interfere with the motion to get it cancelled. So it's just a coincidence that they lined up so close that it seemed they were related. It might also seem the company who owns the rights to the wreck should be able to go and recover whatever they want. But back when the ship was discovered in 1985, there was an act passed to protect the site, to prevent salvages going down taking valuables to sell it. On one hand, I definitely see why this act had to be made, because there will 100% be people who would go to the site and strip it from everything, to the point that there would be nothing left. When it comes to making money, the salvagers clearly wouldn't give a shit about preserving the area as a gravesite for the victims who died there. There will be plenty of millionaires who wouldn't care about how much it would cost, as long as they got some valuables from the Titanic that they could brag about. On the other hand, I do see some valuable objects from Titanic that deserve to be preserved in a museum. To get people to keep remembering the Titanic and pay their respects, and see what like how water survives after all this time. But of course, you can't just plan this kind of voyage without like getting permission from the government. That's because they're breaking the law, but also because with a ship as old as Titanic, you have to be really careful to like not damage what's remaining. And it's funny because this same company has struggled in the past to like get permission from the government to recover stuff from the ship. For example, in 2020, they planned on going down and recovering the ship's radio, which seems pretty minimal, but even that one was cancelled by the government. So it's clear it's a very long process to like recover anything from the Titanic, which to me isn't surprising because of like how like historical it is. But I'm also confused on how a company can struggle to like plan a search for a salvage that they own themselves. Like I feel like something similar to this would happen like much earlier, especially when the ship was found like 40 years ago. And now with technology at this level, people could just send like remote controlled subs that there wouldn't be any casualties if it did go wrong. With the Titan submarine, the passengers wanted to see the ship with their own eyes, but with this one, I feel like it's more advanced. With the people controlling it could just be like on the surface. And it's probably like much less prone to failing since it took longer to build to make sure it wouldn't fail like the last one. Personally, I would like to see like some salvage items from the ship be preserved in the museum to see like what has remained of like over a century. It's not like this would be like an entire museum filled up with stuff from the ship, because at that point would be disrespectful. But a few objects would let people like remember the event and like let them pay the respects. In the future, there might be like another planned expedition, because I don't think it's gonna be that hard to get like permission from the government to allow it. And since that was the only issue like preventing like the 2024 one, they probably will find a way to do it. While I was looking at this planned event, it really reminded me of like one other incident that happened quite a while ago. That being the Costa Concordia, that crashed back in 2012. Back when that cruise ship crashed, it took an incredibly long time to like repair the mess it left behind. It really was like how big it was. But in between the time from like when it crashed to when like the process like to remove it started, there were a lot of people in scuba gear going underwater to like steal like what's remained from the ship. And since it was a pretty like luxurious cruise ship, there were like a lot of ideal parts that were like perfect like salvages to like come in and take. Like one huge section that was dedicated to be like a casino where some money still like, remained. Even if someone waited a while before like searching the ship, they would still find a lot of stuff that was valuable enough to sell. I also want to mention now my favorite part from the ship that was stolen, that being like the massive belt that was on there, where the guy who took it didn't sell it, so now he has like a massive fucking belt for no reason. I'm not saying there would be as many people like going to like salvage the Titanic as it was for like the Costa Concordia, because of you know how deep it is, but I still think this show like how people like will take like a lot of effort to like salvage anything they can find and make money off it. But at the end of the day, I do think in the future there's gonna be like at least one voyage that's gonna retrieve at least one item, which I will let you see. But hopefully you guys a video and I'll see you next time. Bye.